All right, Lunch Button family, welcome here for another wonderful episode on helping you guys take your life, your business, whatever it is you want to the next level. And sometimes we have to go backwards. And what do I mean by backwards? Well, oftentimes we're preconditioned and we don't even know it. Things have happened in our childhood that make us assume certain things are normal, make us understand that this is the way we are, and we don't even realize it's happening. And it isn't until often in life when another trauma happens that we realize, hey, maybe that's not exactly the way things should be. Maybe that's not how it really is in life for everybody. And so today we have an expert on our show, Dr. Anna Katona. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Anne, just Anne
Oh, Dr. Anne, sorry, Dr.
with an
Anne
E.
Katona.
Uh-huh.
And she's from PA, not too far from New York. We got lots of
Yep.
team members out there in that area. And she's going to talk to us about overcoming those traumas. So, Dr. Anne, how did you get started down this whole path, this entrepreneurial path of consulting and helping people through
Yep.
all your years?
Yeah. So, now what I do is I help education leaders create safe, supportive environments and helping to really unite the community around these goals to prevent school violence, to create safer spaces for everybody, for kids, adults, for families. And I really got into this field because of my own experiences as a child. So I'm the youngest of seven. Grew up in a kind of lower middle class family, and we were going to see my oldest sister. We were taking something to her. She was in nursing school, and I remember all of this in detail. And at the time, there were, again, I'm aging myself, that we had bench seats in cars. We didn't have seat belts. We didn't have child safety laws. We didn't have anything. And so I was sitting on my mom's lap. There were storms actually in Allentown, Pennsylvania. There were storms going on. A garbage truck lost some stuff on the side of the road, and we ended up hitting into a car in front of us. And I went through the windshield, so my face got hit, and I ended up having plastic surgery, lots of stitches, and then was taken away from my family and was in this hospital for a week without, they weren't only able to visit for 2 hours a day. So they further traumatized me. And I remember, again, 53 years later, I remember all of these details. So it's just crazy how, some of those things can imprint on us. We either remember them really, really well, or we don't remember them at all. For me, I remember it, and I literally was able to write that out in my book. Um, and so uh, after I got out of the hospital, we didn't talk about things back then. Again, it's kind of like,
Old school,
there aren't any.
right?
Yeah,
It was old
exactly.
school. Nothing happened. Nothing ever happened. You're
No,
perfectly
it's
fine.
fine. Everything's good. Let's move on with life. And we still do that now in so many ways because it's too difficult for us to look at the hard parts. And the adults can't do that for themselves. So how can they help kids to be able to do that? It's impossible. Um, so anyway, I had full blown PTSD, and around 14, I they the symptoms, kind of like my panic attacks, started going away, and I was like, what the heck is going on? Later I realized that it was because that's when I started drinking at 14. I grew up in coal region of central Pennsylvania. We'd get a keg and we'd go out in the bushes and we'd have parties. And it was, we maybe had the cops come and they would just take our beer. They would never arrest us or anything at the time. It was like, no
They
big
might take
deal.
your beer and drink it,
And
but
drink
yes.
it. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And, rub it in your face. But yeah. So, again, it was really socially acceptable. So I didn't really think anything of it. And I just always felt like something was wrong with me. It was just this constant nagging that something was wrong with me. So I was always trying to prove myself. I was very athletic. I was very, as involved in lots of things. I just was always doing things. Again, in my early 20s, I was, working in school, and I was working 3 jobs, and I got my degree, and then I eventually went on for my master's. It's just, I was constantly kind of trying to prove myself. Not that they're bad things. It's just that there was still this hole in me that was not being filled. And I wasn't good in relationships because I was very insecure, and I was really kind of needy in a relationship. And I really didn't love myself. And I didn't know that at the time. And then I went to a retreat in the early 30s, my early 30s, really had kind of a spiritual awakening that I needed to do some shifting. And so I decided to become celibate and just not date because I'd not had good success in dating. And actually, in my early 20s, I was raped. And it was by
Oh,
a guy
I'm
I
sorry.
dated previously. Thanks. And it was in my home. And so I filed a police report, but I didn't press charges because again, I didn't have support. I was in the West Coast at the time. So my family was all back here. And again, kind of my history of how we all dealt with things is, oh, you don't talk about those things. We're just gonna, it's kind of like the we don't talk about Bruno thing, you know. And so um anyway, I didn't file charges. And so I didn't press charges in my, again, in the early 30s, when I had this major awakening, I just decided that I wanted to do some things differently. So I did. I stopped dating and just was like, I need to take care of myself. I actually moved back to Pennsylvania. I was in Florida. Um, I quit drinking, and I was kind of just doing it out of curiosity. All of a sudden I started having panic attacks, and I'm like, what the heck? And I realized that it was because I didn't actually heal my trauma. I just was self-medicating it for years. And so I now needed to kind of deal with it the way that I hadn't. And God gave me a specific message: is you've tried to do this on your own. Now it's time to do it with my help and professional help. Like, I couldn't just suck it up and keep going. It wasn't going to work. So that, a lot of things happened all kind of in that time period. And it was a pivotal time period. I feel like it's like a separate life that I have. I actually got married at 41. So it was after this period of really, intense work. I felt like I was ready for a relationship, ready for a loving relationship. And my husband and I have been together 17 and a half years now. And,
Well,
so
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, it's, we're able to kind of take our own experiences and share them. Actually, I'm trying to get him to do a podcast with me. He and I are going to be writing a book as well, because he fell 30 feet off of a roof in 2019 and survived, broke 7 vertebrae, 2 of them were burst, 16
Wow.
ribs. So lots of craziness going on. But what my childhood led me into my work, which is, I always felt like something was wrong with me. And special education, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get these kids. And I just was naturally good at especially kids with behavior problems because I had such empathy for them. And so that led me to realizing that so many teachers don't have the skills to be able to work with these kids, especially regular ed teachers. So I ended up getting into training and coaching. That was 20 years ago. And then I was a state project director for Safe Schools, Healthy Students, which came out of the Sandy Hook and the Columbine shootings. And from that, I learned a lot, and it led me to do my own thing afterwards because I needed to work directly with the schools and the districts, rather than being at the state level anymore. And so that's what I do now. I'm on the ground with them. And I wrote my book because I share my story all the time in trainings and other things. And so I wanted to help people, through, hearing my experiences and my healing. And it's been really interesting because a lot of people who have known me my entire life are reading it and they're like, I had no clue. I'm like,
Of
yeah,
course.
yeah,
We
yeah.
don't we do a good job of hiding like all the
Do a good
things,
job of
right?
hiding.
You put on
Yeah.
that face, you put on that
Mhm.
thing. And thank you very much for being very open and sharing your story. And you did the hard work, right? And that's
Yeah.
what most people are afraid to do.
Yeah.
Right? As you said, people self-medicate with alcohol, different things. They'll self-medicate so they don't have to deal with it. And I think, especially in New York City and some of the bigger cities, most people were doing that pre-COVID, right?
Absolutely.
They were
Oh,
just making themselves
absolutely.
so
Yeah.
busy, so
Just
busy, so
exacerbated.
busy that
Busyness is a self medication.
it is.
because
Right.
you just want to you get so busy that you can't even pay, you don't want to have downtime to pay attention to what's going on with you.
Yeah.
But
So do you find that's one of the biggest things, especially like, as entrepreneurs and as business owners, people are like, we're talking about people launching out of their careers into different things that you've successfully done, that they make themselves so busy that they don't understand they keep making the same mistakes because of themselves.
yeah, oh, absolutely. And I've had to really focus on doing that for myself. We can only, one of the first things is that I had to shift from not what's wrong with me to what happened to me. So that mindset shift of, there's not anything wrong with me. I'm a result of the experiences that I had, that things happened to me, which that having that lens was huge. And then the other piece is I can only control my own behavior. So I had to focus on my own wellness. I can't put it on someone else. And it was only after I learned that I really was able to grow and create boundaries for myself. And that's including self-care. And, again, I could have, worked at the state in a variety of different ways, but I chose, like, okay, my boundary was I wanted to work directly with schools. So I'm going to have my own business, which is scary. But at the same time, I had to respect what was going to be best for me,
Yeah.
and so, yeah. And so taking time, yes, have I worked long, long hours sometimes? Absolutely. It's just, I've also recognized that no matter what, even if I'm busy or not busy, I have to have my own wellness as a priority.
Yeah.
So,
And we always say on the other side of fear is what you want, right? It's just most people are not willing to go through the fear,
yeah,
through the unknown to get to the other side of it, right?
yeah,
And that's one of the biggest things. Like I always say, on the other side of fear is peace, because when you
absolutely. Oh my
do
gosh.
the hard thing, all of a
Yeah,
sudden, oh, you stop thinking about it, you
not so
stop worrying about
bad. It's like just pull off the band-aid kind of, really. It's like pull it off because I don't say completely pull it off, but get it started. Or there are layers of band-aids, do one layer at a time. And it's like the other side for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, the other side is so great. Even in difficult times, I'm so much stronger than I was before everything. So it's like it's really freeing. And that's what I try to really communicate. Like, oh my gosh, there's so much hope on the other side. And when people have hope, then they're more likely to take action.
it.
They need to see something that's hopeful for them.
And that's a key right there. So launch button audience, we said this before, when people have hope, they'll follow through, but if they don't see a path, they freeze, right? It goes right
Exactly.
back to, fight, flight, or 10,000-year-old crocodile brain. Well, if
Yep.
there's hope and there's a way, they can see it,
Mhm.
they'll take the action, but if they don't see it, it's not.
That's
So
exactly. And trauma takes away that hope in so many people. And
yeah.
people don't get that. So,
I think most people don't even realize they have all of these things.
yeah.
Number one, because they think it's just normal, right? That's
Yep.
how they always
It's
grew
their
up.
normal.
It's
Yep.
their normal, right? They're normal. And
Yep.
two, like then when somebody starts pointing it out, it's really hard for them to accept that,
Yeah.
right? Even though they know that's the issue.
Yeah. Well,
How do
and
you
and,
do that
and
in
it
your
is. It's
practice?
hard to hear it from other people. And that's where I always suggest, like, get some professional help or a coach who can at least just ask you questions so that you have a safe relationship. Because if you're talking to your own family members, it's difficult because they may get defensive. They feel like, you can't. So they may not necessarily, the people closest to you may not be the safest people for you in that time period when you are exploring what's gone on with you. So
They
that's
might think you're blaming them. Might that
that's
be?
exactly. Yeah. It definitely, that's been a challenge. And I've
Yeah.
learned, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to counseling now because we're having trouble, in whatever situation. I'm like, all right, what can I control? I can only control myself. All right. Then for me, it's going to be maybe to go to counseling or go do something that I've already, had positive experiences with. So,
Yeah. And like you said, it's got to be somebody that you trust, right? Like
yeah.
you're building trust with that person. For
Yep.
me, I got tricked into learning how to meditate and dealing all with all my things by a good friend of mine. Uh,
Oh,
so he so I'll tell you the real short version, he told me he'd been diagnosed with MS and he was a savant with numbers and business. And he's like, I'm doing one last party. So come fly to Greece in next week with me, and we're going to do one big party. And when I got there, he's like, all right, I was just coming out of my divorce. And he's like, you got a lot of crap in your head. I'm going to teach you how to meditate, and we're going to deal with all your crap. And I was like, what? And it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Like, and all of a sudden it was just like, cause he just called me out on my BS.
Yeah.
Right. Like the answer I would give to it, I'd been going to therapy for the divorce, but it wasn't working because it was just like, I was like, give me something to do. And he was like, oh, and he was just like, nope, here's the BS. That's BS. Right. And just telling it to me straight the way I needed to hear it.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a
and
safe person for you.
he was a safe person.
Even telling you, telling it to you straight. Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes that helps as well with the coach, right? Somebody you trust,
Yep.
that has been there, done that. And, you're doing that now for not only kids and teachers. And I come from 3 generations of teachers. So I know my mom was a special ed teacher. So I know there's lots of things there. And so I want to thank you for helping, because you are causing the ripple, right?
Yeah.
Not you're causing a ripple. What, you're, even if you affect one teacher, that affects hundreds of people and thousands of people.
Yeah.
And so your work is really getting out there, that thing, and being able to go out there and do that. So the question for you is, what does the future hold for you?
Ooh, well, I have, my book launched in March, so I've been really kind of getting out there more with my book. I'm getting ready to actually even kick off several different programs. I have building resilient classrooms program that I'm doing with schools now. That's really a year-long program. And I also have some shorter little modules online. And I'm also going to be starting a monthly resilience circle. So that's going to actually kick off in September. And it's going to be like a time period where people can come together on Zoom. I'll share 10 to 15 minutes of content of a topic around building resilience. And then there'll be breakout sessions and discussions, and then come back and share out. And so it'll be a community, and creating a community for not just teachers or educators. It's really for anyone any adults who've been through childhood trauma and are looking for ways to build those muscles for themselves, because that's all we can control ourselves. And then, so on my website as well, I'm going to have all these things, and you can also set up a call with me. My website is www.katonalinconsulting.com. And you can schedule with me. You can download some of my free gifts, and also check out some of the other things that I have, as well as I have another book that is Depression Lied to Me. I have a chapter in that, and then I will have a third book coming out at some point in the next 6 months.
Awesome. Well, she's going to give us some links, so we're going to make sure we put them in the show notes for you guys, so you guys can go ahead and grab that. And then, we'll come back here after you launch some of your programs, see how that's going, because for us, it's all about helping people launch and getting off the ground. We know the hardest part of any rocket launch is that first 6 inches. You've already accelerated some of your programs, and now it's time to launch the others. So we look forward to hearing about your success in the future. And since it's only a state or two away, who knows? We may do some live events in the future. So
that'd be awesome.
Be on the lookout for all the different opportunities. Follow along, hit the hearts, hit the likes, put your comments in. We'll make sure we get them all answered. And we will see you guys next time, when all it takes is one more step to success. When you're ready to give up, quitting is the easiest thing to do. Just take one more action, one more step, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a great, wonderful day, and keep moving forward. Thank you for joining us on the Launch Button Podcast, your gateway to unlocking your true potential and pursuing your passions. Don't let the journey end here. For more empowering insights, valuable resources, exclusive content, and free giveaways, visit www.thelaunchbuttonpodcast.com.